Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of That Solo Life, the podcast for PR pros and marketers who work for themselves. I am Michelle Kane of Voice Matters LLC, and I'm here as ever with my wonderful co host, Karen Swim. She is our fearless leader at Solo PR Pro. Hi, Karen. How are you today?
Hi, Michelle. It's Wednesday, right? And it's almost,
Yeah,
well, it's
as if
almost the
this,
end.
well,
It is almost the end of the year. It's almost the end of the week.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
how are you?
as if this recording we're at that midpoint where just trying to get it done and land the week with ease. I'm doing all right. It's holiday season, so I have this eerie notion of like, yeah, whatever. It'll all happen and it'll be fine. Not sure how
Yeah,
much of that is delusion, but it's okay.
delusion. All of
It's all
it.
right.
It's all
Yeah.
delusion. It's all of it. Every single bit of it.
I've got to tell you, I actually got together with two of my best dearest friends, and we actually did the whole little Christmas thing. And it
Oh,
had been so long since we were together, of course. Thank you,
yeah.
COVID. I'm telling you, that was 5 days ago. I am still recovering from okay, I'll say this, we did not drink, but it's a social hangover. I am still spent from
Yeah.
it was awesome, it was great, it was much needed, but the next morning I woke up, I was like, "Oh."
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. We haven't exercised those muscles in a long time. And
No, we have
yeah,
not.
yeah.
So, yeah, so that happened. So, coffee and, all the other things, so
All the
are
other
helping.
things.
All the
We're
other
almost
things.
there. We're almost at the finish line, and then we get to hit a
Yeah.
that reset, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why we're just going to take a little bit of time today. I found this really cool consumer trend report from GWI, that's the Global Web Index. They're an audience targeting company, and they've put together just a look at consumer trends for 2022. So we just
Love
want
it.
to, talk about some of the top takeaways because, we're in that mode of ending the year, but, while you
Yeah,
do want to take time to enjoy that, got one eye on 2022 and what does that mean for us as marketers, as PR pros, as we think about our clients shifting into another new year. I thought the one thing that was interesting, but it also kind of not concerned me, but thought, whoa, Nelly. And I imagine just from a human nature standpoint, it's a natural reflex, but they're claiming there's a 55% increase in consumer optimism since second quarter of 2020. And I love what they said
there it
that
is.
that
For
that
these people.
that their U.S. consumers are feeling bolder, more adventurous, and empowered, but with a diminishing need to be careful and responsible, especially with finances. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, careful there.
I wanna well, the reason that these consumer trends are important, even when you're in the B2B space, is because it really you can put your messages into
Yeah,
the context that really matters because
exactly.
it gives you some insights into how, what the mood is, what,
Right.
where are people's interests these days. And so I always find that fascinating too. But I want to know who these optimistic people are because
Right.
I'm not saying that.
I not nor am I, and I'm thinking, is this the percentage of we're all we're all gonna die anyway? Let me just spend all my money. I don't quite understand, or if maybe this
Yeah.
is the way they cheer
I
themselves
see
up.
people wanting optimism and wanting
Exactly.
to have something to look forward to in the end of this pandemic, but I see people that are just freaking tired and burnt out, not
Exactly.
necessarily optimistic. I wouldn't use the word optimistic, and
So
oh,
who are you speaking to
come
exactly?
on, DWI, fess up. Who are these
Now,
pressure people?
another item they bring up, which does ping, we've spoken about the Great Resignation, and the interesting
Yeah,
aspect that they're finding is, it's not so much that we don't like what we do anymore, because they're saying
yeah,
job satisfaction is still pretty high at about 77%, but people are just using this time of reset and pause to just want a change in their lives of maybe how they work or where they work, or even to just, if they're able to with that, with their
yeah,
overflowing consumer optimism to just take a break. Um, so I thought that was interesting that it wasn't all spurred by burnout or dissatisfaction, which is real
Yeah.
for sure. Um, but I thought that was I thought that was at least a bit promising that, maybe
Yeah.
this is a time of, what do they say? Like, after great mass events like this, you can experience a time of innovation and, the way we
Sure.
used to do things is certainly going to be shaken up in so many ways.
I like
Yeah.
Chip's comment because it really ties together these 2 trends because he says, he wouldn't say optimistic either, but that
Right.
people are becoming resigned to the circumstances and
Yeah.
preparing to resume kind of normal-ish
Right.
pre-pandemic activity. So, and I agree with that. And so along with that, I think, this great resignation, one of the things that, I've been watching this trend very closely and into the data points because one of my clients is in the workforce space and they just
Mhm.
released a brand new report this week. Client plug, MBO Partners, State of Independence report. And this year, so they've been tracking the independent workforce for 11 years. So
Mhm.
that's more than a decade. And this year, they saw the largest ever single year increase in the number of people choosing to work independently.
Mm.
The reason I think that all of this is important when it comes to work and the job and how people are feeling about jobs and how they're choosing to work is that I think that we're leaning towards um, a period where even if all of us here are questioning the word optimism, and that our messaging needs to be more aspirational.
Yes.
It needs to strike the right tone, and it needs to and even in our selling and our business development and in our management with clients,
Yeah.
I think that it helps to really remind ourselves that these are human beings that are going through the same time period, experiencing these same challenges that we are. Many of our contacts may be feeling that level of they're tired of what we've been through over the past 2 years. They may be reflecting on some of the things that they have learned about themselves, about how they want to work, what they want to do with their lives during this time period. And so we have to, I think, be more attuned.
Yeah.
Um, I have, we PR pros were sometimes we fill these weird roles, including counselor,
Oh,
um,
yes.
in the psychological counselor sense. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I always
I mean,
joke that I'm part therapist.
for sure, for sure. It's fun when your clients use you to have tough conversations with their people because they don't want to have the tough conversation. So you're the bad guy. So I've
Yeah.
been the hammer a few times recently, and I'm like, so this
Mm.
is my job now.
Mm. Good times, good times. Ugh,
Okay.
but you know what?
Yeah,
I think, yeah, I think keeping it real has definitely come to the forefront because
yeah,
you know, like you say, we're all going through the same thing, so we all know. We're like, yeah, we can see the sugar coating,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that's something that they bring forth in this report too. That especially Generation Z, they want to keep it real. They're less interested in celebrity news and influencers per se, and they're just like, let's talk about when we're struggling. Let's talk about real issues.
yeah,
They're less interested in the glossy lifestyle
yeah.
types of promotion.
Well, I mean, as Chip brought up too, like this optimism around, okay, this here's where we are. This thing is here, and
Uh-huh.
I may get sick, I may not get sick. People around me may get sick, they may not get sick. I may have to quarantine at some point, I may not. The kids may be out of school. Okay, we've got 2 years under our belt of dealing with this back and forth, this uncertainty.
Yeah.
I think as PR pros, we wanna look at, and our clients should be looking at, if you're when you're serving your market, what solutions can you bring that are easing and facilitating
Right.
this navigating this season of life? So, talk about return to the office, that's going to impact us on a tactical level from the way that we do our jobs with
Right.
some clients planning on returning back to a physical office in January. Many, organizations are planning that shift back or at least to a hybrid work model where they're in the office sometimes and not in the in office. So I think that means that we take a step back and right now, before that happens, start to plan our workflow. How will that
Mhm.
change? Because it's easy to think, that we'll just go back to doing things that the way that we did it in early 2020, 2019,
Right.
but so many things have shifted since
Yeah.
then.
It feels
It's
so
really
long
not
ago.
ever going to be what it was. It's gonna
Yeah.
be a new version of day-to-day life, and so I think it's good to stop before we get into the new year and think about, like, "Okay, how do I wanna manage this? How do I want to begin to prepare? How do I set up my systems and processes to accommodate this new shift?"
Right.
Maybe that's going to mean fewer virtual meetings, and maybe you'll have to work back in to your calendar some in-person meetings and even some travel. With people going back and forth, it might mean modifying a lot of the ways that you communicate today. For me, Zoom and Slack are like part of my day-to-day life. That's it.
Mhm.
And and in some ways that's been good because you maintain I've actually feel like I have an even deeper connection with clients because
Right.
before it was just phone calls. We would just
Right.
have conference calls. But when you're seeing people, it does give you that level of intimacy as much as we talk about Zoom fatigue. There is a positive side to it as well. And then Slack for that, real-time communication. But are people who are going back into the office, are they still going to want that level of communication?
Mhm.
I
Right.
think it's something to start considering.
No,
And I'm sure I'm
absolutely.
leaving out a lot of other things too.
No, definitely, definitely, and it's always I always have keep in mind no matter what kind of project I'm working on or even if it's my own promotion of, how can I best get my target audience to hear what we have to say? How can we best hone in? And,
Yeah,
this report brings up some really key items for that as well. They're calling it the attention recession.
yeah,
How
yeah,
competing for our attention, how do you glean through what's the necessary news? Or are we just, with the Omicron variant coming out, even I who have the rosiest glasses of, no, it's okay. People need to know. I'm like,
yeah,
ugh, just relax already. I mean, yeah, it's a thing. Do we have to like
yeah,
get all excited? When you turn
yeah,
on the news, like the hushed tones. I'm like, all right, I'm over this now. Just stop
yeah.
it. We've got to deal with this. But
Well, I mean,
and
I don't know about you, but I just recently started, I had sort of lost my book reading habit, which is so unlike
mm,
me. I
I'm
love
still
books.
looking for mine.
Back up, and I think that it was just like, I miss reading full-length books, like, I read
Yeah,
a lot of snippets of stuff, I read
right.
articles, do this and do that, but I just haven't had the bandwidth to just sit, and so lately I've been
Yeah,
doing that, and it's really been like therapy,
nice.
to just sit down and, like, run through a book in a weekend,
Mm,
but I believe that that's part of that attention recession is that we just there's so many moving parts
yeah,
that we just don't have the bandwidth to read long form messaging
right.
and that is something to keep in mind too as you're preparing. You want to make sure that the most important information jumps out at people, that you're doing it in as succinct a way as possible, that you're not too wordy, that you know because people just don't have the bandwidth and
Yeah.
dealing with journalists, I can say the same
Oh,
thing. You wanna get to the point, make it
yeah,
easy, make it bite-sized, make it, and so it really means fine-tuning your media relation
yeah.
skills too in
No,
this era.
absolutely. I think partly because we've all been sort of rewired to what's the latest, what's the next bad thing now that we have to be ready for it. It was funny, I was watching the holiday versions of the Great British Baking Show, and there's this one, contestant, Rahul, he goes into these long, convoluted descriptions of his bakes that they actually have a running joke where they're like, "Pull up a chair. Shall I pull up a chair?" And at one point, they actually all pulled up a chair, and he just kept going because 30 years ago, my mother baked this thing. They're like, "Okay."
My god.
So, make sure your inner Rahul, who's a lovely man, is being succinct as you as you craft your messaging and help your clients to do the same as well. I mean, it's certain
Yeah,
we're not certainly not saying like just be abrupt, but meet your audience where they are as much in the moment as you can, of course, which
yeah.
is kind of a no-brainer. But one really cool thing that they're saying, seeing as that we're podcasters and all, is that audio has thrived during lockdown and will continue to do so. mainly because we're sick of staring at screens, although some of them
Yeah,
may be staring at us now, but
I found this trend really interesting too. And
mm,
really, I'd love to dig into the methodology
yeah.
on this whole study. So podcasts are definitely, they're saying, podcasters are the new influencers. Woo woo to us and to Chip.
And we're keeping it real. Ha ha.
Part of that trend. Hey. However, there are things like Clubhouse that I personally abandoned a long time ago. I
Mm,
know some people are still there. I'm not saying that it's dead, but it
yeah.
definitely is not the hot, thriving must have. There's Twitter Spaces, and then I just saw that Facebook also is doing audio.
Mhm.
I think obviously, because we're a podcast, we love audio in certain formats, but I'm wondering if there's more specifics that they are
Mm,
saying, like what type of audio, because the audio social media thing, so the two-way audio,
yeah.
I'm not so sure, to be
No, yeah,
the
I think
podcast
that
for sure, and I
yeah,
think, what you pulled out is that being able to listen on a commute or, listen while you're doing something else. So listening
yeah,
in terms of audio, even audiobooks can be fabulous, and it can take you really outside and make you feel like you're, immersed in a movie because somebody is reading it to you. But
right.
the audio social media part, I'm still, as much as I participated and I, tried them all early on and used
Mhm.
them, I'm just not so sure.
Yeah, yeah, I think they were definitely speaking more toward the one-way,
Yeah, the
communication,
one
like, the
way.
podcasts were top, and I think it was 50%, or,
Mhm.
while you're noodling around at home, you've got the podcast playing because, yeah, let's face it, the two-way social, it still requires energy from you, and it's
Yes.
like, no, I'd rather be more of a passive listener
Ooh, I like that.
than,
I
you know
like that. Real-time audio is disruptive and boring. Yeah, it's
yeah,
oh, I know Chip was never a fan of Clubhouse. I in the beginning of Clubhouse, I wanted no parts of it because it
right.
felt too inside Silicon Valley to me, and I
Yeah.
just wanted no parts. It felt very elitist.
Mhm,
And I finally jumped onto it. It was really for a very specific person, and that's because a lot of the VC audience was there, and
mhm.
with clients in that space, I felt like I wanted to be there because there were
Right,
some real conversations that really were happening that
right.
could inform our work. But I left it because of some of the things that Chip is saying is like, ain't nobody got time for this. And it felt like
Yeah.
some people were living on Clubhouse. It was like the early, early days of Twitter.
Yes. Yeah,
Fun.
and then yeah, because then there were some people that
I
had
Twitter too, but it was fun.
yeah, yeah, then there were people like, they've got nothing but time for Clubhouse.
Yeah, and I'm like, what are these people doing? Like and so once I turned off alerts, I sort of lost
Oh,
interest. There wasn't
yeah,
anything that was really grabbing me to be like, I gotta be there. And
yeah,
then Twitter Spaces came along, and I liked that first and foremost because it was more inclusive. You didn't
right,
have to be, and you didn't have to be an iPhone user to use the platform. So
correct.
just the openness of that made it attractive. And it was on a social media platform where I already have an audience and I'm already participating, which also
Exactly.
makes it more attractive.
Yeah,
So I do
yeah,
kind of explore, I've used Twitter Spaces here and there. I, am planning to do more, but it's hard these days because every platform has mirrored everything, and I just
exactly.
I don't have time to do an Instagram reel, a TikTok, a
Oh,
LinkedIn Live, YouTube. I
yeah,
don't know about everybody else, and I would
yeah,
never advise clients to do all of there's
no,
too much. At this point,
no,
it's too much. One point,
yeah,
we were like, "Get on X social media channel." We can
right,
no longer say that. Like, it's too much. Pick
yeah,
one. And
yeah, you definitely have to focus, find out where you're getting the most traction and where it's most effective, but yeah, please don't feel like you have to hop on the hottest thing because it's just again maintaining that energy, that bandwidth, and that's not only the work you're able to perform, but just your client. They only have so much budget, so where is that going to be best spent for them to
yeah,
achieve their goal, not just look cool. I've been tempted with a client. to say, should we be on TikTok? And then, just knowing what I know, it's like, well, there really is there really aren't content creators from within, which you almost really need to get the full benefit of it. That's not really something you can do third party, whereas
Yeah,
Facebook, you can grab their tone and be their
yeah,
voice as
yeah.
their brand, but TikTok's a little too personal, for lack of a better way of putting
I
it.
absolutely. Now, so TikTok is one of my favorite passive platforms.
Right,
I am on TikTok scrolling like I'm watching TV.
right.
Um, it's I love TikTok. So, but I'm not making TikToks because
Right.
it, some days I'm like, oh, I really want to do that. And then I feel like,
You
oh,
should.
I'm really too old to do that.
No,
Just
you're
keep
not.
stay in the background. Just watch. Do not make a TikTok video.
Oh, now I wanna see you do a TikTok video. I know, yeah, it's funny. Sometimes I think, "Oh, man, if I were in high school or college, I'd be all over this," and now I'm jaded. I'm like, "No one cares what I have
Yeah.
to say.
It's like, "I'm too old. I've aged out of the system."
It's been said and done," but I appreciate everyone else's comment.
Although there are some older people on TikTok, but, just
Yeah,
sometimes you do, you're, like, motivated. You're like, "That looks so fun. I wanna
yeah,
do that too."
yeah,
But, I don't sing and I don't dance. I mean, not professionally and well enough for other people to be like, "Yeah, hey, go Karen swim."
Oh, come on now.
Um, but I love what Chip said. This is such a key point that you can share with your clients. Your target audience is rarely on the latest and greatest social networks. Stay focused on
Right.
where they are today with 90% of your effort.
Yeah,
I think that that is 100% solid advice, Chip Griffin. You are a smart,
agree.
smart man.
Agree, agree, agree.
Are smart, smart. And we are so glad that you are our friend because we learn so much from you.
Yeah.
That right there, folks, is worth the whole advice of the 20 minutes that you've given us of your time.
That's right. Exactly. Yep. Stay focused. Take all of this information in. We'll put the link to this report in our show notes. But we just wanted to give you a little peek into 2022 as we wrap up 2021. And as always, we thank you for joining us on That's Solo Life.